Welcome to Church of New Beginning in the Word Wednesday. And if you've been watching lately, we've got a couple of different settings for this. We are noon in the Word Wednesday, and then also a replay in the Word Wednesday at 7 o'clock p.m. We thank you for tuning in, and y'all know that this coming Sunday is Mother's Day. And that if you ever still have your mothers, make sure that you reward her the best you can. But here in our in-person service on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock in person, we will have co-pastor Gene Sadler will be speaking at the 9 o'clock hour on Mother's Day. So we are asking you and inviting you to come and be a part of our service in person, 3150 Highway 20, South Conyers, Georgia. All right, let's get into the lesson today. I believe this is the last part of this lesson dealing with the humility of Christ. And tonight we're going to be in Mark chapter 10, verses 46 through 52. That's where we're going to be. Mark chapter 10, verses 46 through 52. Let me just read these verses in your hearing, and then we'll come back and talk about them on the other end. Then they came to the town of Jericho. As Jesus was leaving there with his followers and a large crowd, a blind beggar named Bartimaeus was sitting by the roadside. Okay. So the text says in verse number 46 that Jesus was leaving Jericho. Now, if you know anything about Jericho, Jericho was a city that, people really did not like to go into because it had its issues and problems. And maybe some cities like that today. Well, but Jesus didn't mind going into the problem areas. He didn't mind going into the areas that other people may not want to go into. So, but from reading as a Bible student, you know that there was also another man called Zacchaeus. Y'all remember he was a short guy, and he ran and got up in the tree, okay, because Jesus was coming into town. And so he wanted to see Jesus because he was short. Well, this episode in Mark chapter 10, verse 46, is Jesus is going out of town. So that tells me that if you don't get your blessing when Jesus is coming into town or when Jesus is in town, it may be when you're going out, when Jesus is going out. So in other words, as long as Jesus is around, and he's always around, you can always be blessed. All right. So today, when we look at the person, it is a guy by the name of Bartimaeus, and he was normally called and referenced by his condition. All right, that's kind of sad. With even in a way, when you start thinking about if somebody just knows you by your condition. Okay, what if they call you high blood pressure John? Okay, heart problem or heart such and such John, or maybe they call you Cancer John, or whatever the case may be. That you would not want to have that kind of thing upon you. So he was a blind beggar. And so, in other words, he begged for a living. This was the only way he was able to get money. So he was on the roadside. And the text tells us there was a crowd of people, and they were kind of following Jesus as they were going out. And blind Bartimaeus is seen here in the text, and he's identified in this text. Now, I kind of like this because you can't tell the story of Jesus. You can't look at the life of Jesus Christ without bringing up blind Bartimaeus, okay? If you're going to tell the whole story of Jesus, you got to talk about him. So the person in the text is found in verse number 6, a blind beggar. All right, then when we move on to verse 47, he heard that Jesus from Nazareth, okay? Now notice it wasn't just any Jesus or somebody had the name of Jesus. It was specifically referred to by the name of Jesus from Nazareth, was walking by. The blind man cried out, "Jesus, Son of God, please help me." So Verse 47 tells us that he was tired of being in his condition, and he evidently had heard about the fact that Jesus was healing people and all of this kind of stuff. Or maybe I'm thinking that probably he hadn't heard about Jesus because he knew specifically how to call him. He called him the text refers to him as Jesus from Nazareth, and then he goes on to call him Jesus, son of David. And then he cries out for a plea. In other words, he says, I want you to help me. Now, when Christ comes, Bartimaeus cries out, have mercy on me. He wanted to be healed from his blindness. Okay, so that's what we see in the text here of what he wanted, his plea. His plea was to identify what he wanted from Jesus. He said, I want to be healed from my blindness. He didn't ask him for any money. He didn't ask him for a job. He didn't ask him for a home. He didn't ask him for a car, a chariot, or whatever the case might be. He just wanted to be able to see. All right. That kind of lets me know that he felt perhaps, this is just Sattler talking here, that if he was able to see, he would be able to provide for himself and he would not have to beg anymore. Okay. He wouldn't have to depend on anybody to carry him where he wanted to go. He would just be able to go on his own. So he just said, Jesus, please heal me from this blindness. Okay. So then we go to verse 48. And here we're going to see the problem that develops because he heard Jesus coming through. He started crying out, asking for help from Jesus. Now, verse 48 said, many people scold. In other words, they rebuked the blind man and told him to be quiet. In other words, they told him to shut up. But he shouted more and more, Son of David, please help me. Now, isn't it strange when you think about the problem here? The folk that could see, y'all hear me? The folk that could see are telling him to shut up. They not blind. They don't know what it's like to be blind. They don't have a clue what's going on or anything. So, but they're telling him, they ain't trying to help him, but they're telling him to shut up. Now, I'm sure he was making a lot of loud noise. And when you need help, you don't mind crying out with a loud voice saying, I need help. So some told him to be quiet, but he cried out the more. So the more they told him to shut up, the more he cried out. Okay. So now, when we go to the next verse, in verse number 49, Jesus stopped and said, listen to this now, all this confusion going on, perhaps with him howling and crying and carrying on. It's a crowd of people. But in verse 48, I like what it says here, y'all. It says, Jesus stopped and said, tell the man to come here. So those who was telling him to shut up said, he calling for you. All right, now what if he had just been quiet? What if he had been quiet and not said anything? Maybe Jesus, just maybe, Jesus would not have noticed him. But what was he doing? He was putting his faith on the line because he said, I need help. And so they called the blind man and they said, cheer up, get to your feet. Jesus is calling you. In other words, get to your feet. Now, I guess he must have been sitting down in a normal place where they would normally put him every day, for he would be sitting by the roadside begging for those to give him something from those who were coming by, where he was and everything. Let's look at verse number 50. The blind man stood up quickly. All right. Jesus is calling him, and they said to the crowd says, get up on your feet. Okay, verse 50 says, the blind man stood up quickly. He left his coat there and went to Jesus. Now, I don't know, y'all. Didn't take time to look it up. I don't know how he got there. It doesn't say anything about anybody led him to Jesus or how he got there. But don't you think that's kind of peculiar that he's a blind man, but nevertheless, he heard the voice of Jesus saying, tell the blind man to come here. And then the folks start saying, he calling for you. All right. But he leaves his coat. And the coat was something that identified him as a blind man. So he was going to leave the tag that he had. Now, y'all know when people post nowadays on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, or Instagram, they put a pound sign in something. In other words, the tag, what they want to identify. So when people start looking, they can look for that tag and stuff. Well, he left his tag in the place where he walked, the coat that identified him evidently as being a blind person. He said, I hear Jesus calling me. I hear them telling me that Jesus wants me. So I'm going to get up. I'm going to Jesus and I'm going to leave this thing that I've been carrying around that people can identify me with. Okay, verse 51 says, Jesus asked him. Now, he didn't just, you know what? Jesus knew the man was blind. But, you know, just because he was blind, that may or may not have been what the blind man wanted. He might have not have, it might not have been the fact that he wanted to see. He might have been saying, well, I want a new house. I want a place to live. I want some clothes. I want a car. I've been wanting a Bentley for a long time. That's what I want. I want a Bentley. Or I want to get some custom suits. I want to get some custom shoes. That's what I want. I want a custom shirt. But no, Jesus wanted to find out specifically, what do you want? Now, we know that he had already cried out to Jesus, and then he said, Lord, help me of this blindness and so forth. But Jesus, when he's talking to him one-on-one here, he wants to know specifically what he wants to do, because the B clause says, what do you want me to do for what? You. All right. The blind man answered. So in other words, he knew what he wanted. He said, teacher, I want to see again. Put a line under again, because that tells me, y'all, that evidently he could see at one time and he went blind for some reason. And what he's telling Jesus, I want to be able to see again. All right. I know what it's like to be able to see. So I want to be able to see again, like I used to be able to see. So that's what he told Jesus that he wanted. Verse 52 said, Jesus said, go, you are healed because you believed. He believed, y'all. That's what got him healed. But it says, the latter part said, at once the man was able to see again, and he followed Jesus on the road. All right. The text says, he said, go, you, go. And it's a period there. You are healed. Because, and he told him why he was healed, because he believed. Come on, somebody. And the Bible said that when he was healed, he did something. He was some reaction to that. When we believe in Jesus Christ, we ought to show it by some action. And his action was to do what? He wanted to go follow Jesus down the road. All right. So now, as we look at this in verses 49 through 52, we see the attention that Jesus gave. Jesus stood still. It said it was a crowd of folk on the road, but Jesus stood still. He was interested in blind Bartimaeus. And I want to share with you today that Jesus is interested in you. All right. And then we see the attitude. Okay. So first of all, we see in here, we saw the attention that he get. Man, isn't it nice when you get special attention and everything? When the attention is focused just on you and what have you. But then in verse 51, we see an attitude. Jesus asked, what do you want? He asked the same question. He asked the same question of you and I. What do you want? What do you need? Now, if you had a face-to-face conversation with Jesus right now, what would you ask him for? Do you have an idea of what you would ask him for? All right. Now, somebody might say, well, I've got some sickness in my body. I got a disease in my body. I want to be delivered. I want to be cured. I want to be healed. I want to be this or that. Or maybe there are some other needs that you have. I want a job. I need a house. I need a car or whatever. But look what this man did. He knew exactly what he wanted. So I wonder today, do you know exactly what you want if Jesus would ask you what you want. All right. Then after the attention, the attitude, we see the action. Verse 52 tells us Christ respond helping blind Bartimaeus. In verse 52, it says, Jesus said, go, and you are healed because you believe. At once the man was able to see again, and he followed Jesus on the road. All right. Man, if I was blind and somebody healed me, I'm thinking I would go follow them too. Okay. I think I would go follow them to figure, to let them know I appreciated what they had done for me. All right. Let me conclude this lesson today or this evening, whenever you're watching it, by just bringing up some additional closing points to conclude with. All right. I think I came up with about maybe 7 or 8 different points that I wanted to make sure that I recap to get you clear on this. Okay. Number one, he hears that Jesus is coming down the road. That's the first thing we see. He hears, number one, he hears that Jesus is coming down the road. The second thing he does when he hears that he's coming, he does not know exactly how far Jesus is. So he cries out to Jesus. And the text says he cried out with a what? Loud voice. Number 3, he's called and he responds to the call. Now, we can get called a lot of times and we don't respond to the call. Number 4, he asks, what does Jesus ask? What does he want? Jesus wants to know, what do you want? He says, I want to see. All right. The 6th thing I see in this is this. Jesus tells him, go, and he does. You see how this man is following what Jesus is telling him to do? A lot of times Jesus tells us to do stuff, and that's the problem that we have. We don't do what Jesus tells us to do. He tells them to go, and he does. Okay. Number 7, he follows Jesus. Number 7, he follows Jesus. Okay. And then number 8, after Jesus healed him, he does not remain in the same place. So sometimes, y'all, we need to realize that the place where God has delivered us from, that we need to move on to some other place. Don't stay in the condition. Don't stay in the slum. And I don't mean that about houses and stuff, but I'm talking about in the pits, in the mucky mire clay, as the old folk would say. Just get caught up in when Jesus is trying to get you out of your situation. Well, the other day, I believe it might have been Tuesday, which would have been yesterday, my cousin, I call him Greatness. His name is Christopher D. Williams. He shared a quote with me, and I told him, I say, well, the first time I use it, I'm going to give you credit for it, but after that, it belongs to me. All right. So let's put this quote up on the screen so that you can see it. All right. Hope you can read it and everything. I don't know what's going on here. Well, for some reason or another, is slow about getting up on the screen and everything. But let me see if I can just go ahead and just read it to you. And I got to get kind of close to the screen so I can see it too. All right. Now, why is this thing not showing up here? Oh, here we go. We have to remember that we're eagles, and when the nest begins to cramp us, it is time to what? Spread our wings and fly. Don't stay in a space or a situation that you have outgrown or you've outgrown. And so this man had outgrown that situation. He was a blind man. He wasn't blind no more. He was healed of his blindness. Okay. If you've been watching today and you have not accepted Jesus Christ as the person saved, today is a good time to do it. And sadly, how do I do that? I ask the Lord to forgive me of all my sin. And then I turn around and I said, Lord, I believe that you are the Son of God. I beve that God has raised you from the dead. Not only that, but I believe that Jesus Christ is coming back to receive unto him the body of Christ, which we call the church. If that's you today, all you got to do is pray that prayer. And I believe that Jesus will save you and God will protect you and you will live eternally with Jesus Christ. All right. Now, as we get ready to go, let me just remind you of a couple of things that I mentioned at the beginning. We talked about the fact that this coming Sunday is Mother's Day, and here in person at the Church of New Beginnings at 3150 Highway 20, South Conyers, Georgia, co-pastor Gene Sattler will be our speaker for Mother's Day. So y'all pray for her that she will be used by the Lord to preach to us, teach us, or however the Lord gives us whatever. All right. So to y'all know I like to end up with Numbers chapter 6 in verses 24 through 26. Y'all know and basically what it says, and y'all know I be talking about this all the time. May the Lord watch over you and protect you and give you peace. All right. And so that's what we're dealing with today. And we just want you to know that we love you here at Church of New Beginnings. And we want you to know that we appreciate you listening in every Wednesday at noon, again, the replay at 7 o'clock, and then at 10:30 on Sunday morning. If you want to come and be a part of us in person, you can be a part of us on Sunday morning at the 9 o'clock hour, 9 o'clock hour in person. Wear your mask. We'll try to do everything we can to protect you. We love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. So we'll see you again here in the virtual service at 10:30 on Sunday morning, this coming Sunday on Mother's Day. And those of you that want to come in person, we will greet you at the 9 o'clock hour on Mother's Day. Tell a friend, tell a neighbor, bring somebody. God bless you. We're praying for you, and God bless you. We're praying for the little family and also the Pleasure family. We are praying for you as well. God bless you. We love you, and there's nothing you can do about it.